Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to frame this beautiful alstroemeria and use a textured background. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of my backgrounds. Now this is a picture of a piece of concrete that I took in a B&Q, and what we're going to do is we're going to make it a square. So I'm going to crop and I'm going to say square. Let's say OK to that. Now we'll make a new layer. So we're going to go into the plus at the bottom of this panel, click the plus, OK, and there we have a new layer. Then we're going to apply the frame. So make sure you're on the new layer. We're going to choose the colour of the frame. So let's go to this image, get the eyedropper, and let's choose a colour for your frame. Bearing in mind, this is the colour I chose. So let's just have a look. Maybe that one. It's about the same, I think. Yes, I think we'll have that colour. Go back to your textured layer. And let's go up to filter, render, and picture frame. And as it happens, I've already got one I made earlier. Now, that is the colour I chose, which I think is more or less the same as that one there. I've chosen a margin of 20. So if you play around with this, what it will do is it'll bring your frame in. So it depends where you want your frame. So let's leave it on 20. I think I put it on 20. And then the size. So if you play around with it, look, you can alter the size of your frame. All right. Smaller, you get a thinner frame. So I'll put mine on 30. Yeah. And the arrangement, this is where you want the light on the frame to be. Now, if you move the slide up and down, you can see it changes the light completely. See there, you've got the light on that corner. And then it changes again and again. So I think I had it set on 54. So let's just type it in. 54. I think that was about it. So I set it on art frame, colour, margin 20, size 30. And the arrangement 54, which means the lighting was actually on the left-hand corner. It is just the way it is. It depends which way you want it. So we're going to say OK to that. So there we've got the frame, as it happens, just ideally. And what it does is it actually positions it, you know, if it was an A4, you'd get an A4 frame automatically. But we've got a square, so it's giving us a nice square frame. So let's call this layer frame. So I'm just going to double click, type in frame. Yes, you can see it's a frame, but it's nice if you've got it there, you know exactly what it is. So let's go and click on the background layer. I think what we're going to do is we're going to change the whole colour of this textured background. So let's make an adjustment layer. And the idea behind this is if you don't like it, you can always switch it off or delete it. That's the great thing about having these new layers. So we'll just call that colour balance. We'll leave that as it is. So here you've got your colour balances. And what I did is I just played around with these sliders. So for this particular one, I pull the yellow right the way down to -100. And then I'll gradually ease the red until I was happy with the colour. And I think it was somewhere, let's just have a look. Yeah, I think it was about, let's go for 40. I think it was about there. So you've got your yellow on -100 and your red on plus 39. So that gives us that nice sort of like shade that goes with the frame. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a rectangle within this frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure you're on the frame. I'm going to get the colour picker tool and I'm going to just sample the colour from there, which I think that's about the right colour. Yeah, and then we'll go to the rectangle tool and this will all become clear in a minute. So we're going to draw a rectangle within this frame, making sure you've got it perfectly out to the edges. I think that's about there. And there you've got a colour within the frame. So now what we need to do is we need to reduce the opacity of this rectangle so we can see the texture underneath. So I'm going to go to the opacity and I'm going to keep going until I can see the texture underneath. And I think I set it about 40%, which I think is about right. So we say okay to that. Maybe take it down a little more if you feel you want to show more texture underneath. Yeah, maybe 25%, something like that. We're going to go for 30%. Now I'm going to move the flower over to this part of the image. So we've got transparency. Now this is the main, this was how it was before. And what I've done is I've used select and mask and I've brought it into a new layer. So not a layer with a layer mask. I've just brought it in as a new layer, so it brings it in as a transparency. And then later on, all I've done is tidy the stems up and the edges. So normally it would have just come in as a transparency. If you feel you want to tidy it up more, then you can do in masking, okay, which is what I did. So now what we're going to do is select the move tool and we're going to move these flowers over to our framed background. Bring it down with the mouse, hold the mouse button down, release it when you're happy. Say yes. Now, yes, it is going to be larger. But this is purely a digital image. It's not something you necessarily print. So I've just moved it into position. And while you've got these handles and the arrow in the middle here, you can move it around as you want to. You can resize it, the box, resize it, wherever you want it to be. I think it was probably about there. Yeah, I think it was about there. And just say okay to that. So this image that we've dragged over as a transparency, we've also dragged the mask over, which was basically tidying up the stems and the edges. So what we can also do now on this mask, we can take the black, okay, and we've got the brush here. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see what we're doing. So, okay, got the brush and I'm going to go in at 15%. So change the opacity of the brush to 15%. So let's first of all, and we're only doing it on the flowers. So let's go all across. You can see it's making it a bit softer. So go all the way across. You don't have to do it in any, you don't have to do it all, just that's straight away making it softer. And then go around the edges again at 15%, giving you an even more softer image, so it doesn't look as though it's just been placed on the background. You can do this as many times as you like, but I go in at 15% because I find it's a lot more control. It can soften those stems down so they don't stand out so much. And it can be quite random. And let's just have a look at it. Let's zoom out a bit. I think that bit of softening has really made a difference. It doesn't stand out too much from the background, but I think that the whole thing with the texture and everything really gives it a bit of something different, really. So I hope you've enjoyed this this video. If you have, please give me a like, subscribe, and then you'll be able to see the latest videos coming up. In the meantime, hope to see you again. Take care